This lecture is on Japanese immigrants and racialization, and I will have two examples, the Gentleman's Agreement of 1906 and the Ozawa case of 1922. The racialization of Japanese immigrants created the idea of a Japanese race, just like the racialization of Chinese immigrants created the idea of a Chinese race. In 1906, the San Francisco Unified School District School Board wanted to segregate Chinese, Japanese, and Korean students from white students to protect and preserve, quote unquote, a white racial purity. However, Japan was a rising superpower with a strong military who defeated the Russian in the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. Fearing a major international and geopolitical crisis, President Theodore Roosevelt urged the SF School Board to change its segregation policy. The school board agreed to allow Japanese students to go to school with white students, while the other Chinese and Korean students were segregated in the Oriental school. As a result, Japan would stop issuing visas to Japanese laborers, and the U.S. would stop Japanese laborers from coming to California. Therefore, Japanese laborers were trapped in Hawaii because they were there to work their plantations. Now, the Japanese laborers were brought over, recruited, because the Chinese laborers were demanding more pay and more pay equal to the white laborers, and so many plantation owners thought, well, it would just be cheaper to get another cheap Asian immigrant group to come over and work, and so they looked to Japan. Later, they will look to Korea and then the Philippines, and then South Asia, India, right? So, and then the second, and so the gentleman's agreement reveals how superficial and arbitrary the idea of race actually is. If the goal was to protect white racial purity, this agreement does not resolve it. This agreement between President Roosevelt's administration and the government of Japan and the SF School Board. What it does reveal is that the real reason for wanting to segregate Japanese American, wanting to discriminate against them, is economic competition. Japanese laborers were coming to the mainland, to California from Hawaii, and were becoming a labor market threat to white laborers. This fueled anti-Japanese sentiment and anti-Japanese public policies and economic restrictions and social discrimination that affirms and reinforces the idea of a Japanese race that is inferior to the white race. In fact, the Japanese race, their ability to adapt to the American way made them a bigger threat than the Chinese, who were not able to adapt to the American way. And another case that we had, the Ozawa case. Ozawa has been in the U.S. since 1894. He went to Berkeley High School, close to where I live, and he attended UC Berkeley for 3 years. He moved to Hawaii, started a family, and spoke English at home. He applied for naturalization, naturalized citizenship, and was denied. He appealed, and it was denied. And the U.S. Supreme Court denied his appeal based on the fact that he was not white. According to the 1790 naturalization law, only white men were able to become naturalized citizens. The Ozawa ruling affirms the idea that there is a white race versus a Japanese race, and here members of the white race had access to privilege and power. The privilege of becoming a naturalized citizen and the power of being able to vote. So as you read, pay attention to how Japanese immigrants were racialized politically, socially, and economically, and start to compare Japanese racialization to Chinese racialization and see what they have in common.